Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel will be Dr. Jennifer Abbott with her talk titled, Wear Your Courageous Costume. Dr. Abbott first arrived at Wabash College in 2002 after earning her PhD in speech communication from Penn State University. Born and raised in California, Dr. Abbott attended Cal Poly as an undergraduate student. Professor Abbott is currently the chair of the Rhetoric Department and the Gender Studies academic program. Her research examines how visual and verbal symbols attempt to shape our perceptions, attitudes, and even actions, with a particular interest in how popular media portrays masculinity and how news media reporting influences audiences. In her personal life, Dr. Abbott enjoys spending time with her husband, Wabash professor Michael Abbott, and their daughter Zoe. They can frequently be found at Little Mexico, their favorite restaurant in Crawfordsville. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Abbott.
Thank you. I was remembering being up here. I got married here on this stage. It's fun to come back. Yeah. To a Wabash man. Wabash men tend to marry up. Yeah, okay. Good morning, Wabash. Thank you to the Sphinx Club for inviting me to speak, especially Chris Cantu. It's an honor I've been really looking forward to. Thank you. Halloween, it's a week away. I'm already seeing decorations go up around town. Perhaps you're planning a fun party or deciding which scary movies you're gonna watch. It does fall on a Friday night this time. Maybe you'll even dress up. Do you remember, though, when you were a little kid for Halloween, the anticipation, the excitement of it all, picking out your costume, maybe you got to wear it to school for the day, thinking about all the candy you were gonna get, knowing the right houses or apartments to go to with the best candy? For me, that was and remains Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and Milky Ways, hands down. And you gotta go out at night, and as you got older, you gotta ditch the parents and run around with your friends. I have such fond memories of growing up as a kid for Halloween in Northern California, in San Jose. I loved playing dress up all year. My older sister was in dance, so she had fabulous dance costumes I liked to wear. But on Halloween, I got to wear my costume outside. My favorite Halloween costumes have been Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, Mary Poppins. I was also a house painter, a court jester, and a bride, all of which were made by my mom, who remains an amazing seamstress. And in fact, some of those costumes have stood the test of time, such that my daughter has worn them for her Halloweens. It's fun to try out a character, a role, a persona for a day, even to push gender boundaries. As Doigu Balan explained in a 2024 Psychology Today article, quote, Halloween's an opportunity for pushing against the limits of gender roles, allowing for exploration, self-expression, and stepping into roles beyond the confines of our day-to-day lives. Halloween permits us to discover stories and characters by using art, crafts, and role play to set our imagination free. In this space of creative expression, costumes are simply costumes. There's no need to label them as for girls or for boys, unquote. Boys could be butterflies or maids. Girls can be ninjas and pirates. I remember dressing up as the Gorton's fisherman. You all may not know who that is. It's the marketing mascot for frozen fish sticks, which was a staple in my house growing up. I really love those frozen fish sticks. The Gorton's fisherman was an older man in a big yellow slicker and the big yellow pants and the hat to match, and that was my costume. Another year, I was a rather androgynous scarecrow with a flannel shirt, big overalls, and some straw sticking out from my wrists and my ankles. It was fun to dress a little genderless or masculine for a day. After all, Halloween is a little like drag. And if we're all being honest, drag is fun. It can be easier, though, for girls to break gender boundaries with their Halloween costumes. Parents are more likely to praise the independence and the resilience of their daughters dressing up like a construction worker or Bob the Builder. As Milan, who I mentioned earlier, warns, reactions may be harsher when a boy wants to dress up as a fairy or a princess. Boys tend to be restricted in how they can dress up. Halloween costumes and how we restrict who can wear what can tell us a lot about our society's gendered expectations. Multiple studies have found that Halloween costumes clearly send gendered messages. Girls' costumes, for example, are more likely tight-fitting and revealing, sexualizing the wearer. Some 68% of girls' costumes show skin. And they're marketed in ways that promise the wearer will look cute, pretty, or sexy. Boys' costumes are much more likely to cover the skin. Their face is also more likely to be covered with a mask. 46% of boys' costumes include a mask compared to 4% of girls' costumes. And the masks for boys' costumes often feature expressions of rage, anger, or madness. The marketing of boys' costumes promise the wearer will look tough, strong, scary, or gross. Halloween costumes as a whole tell girls they should be pretty objects of admiration, and tell boys they should enact the power of fear or intimidation over those they encounter. Don't get me wrong, it can be fun to wear costumes that embrace traditional notions of gender. My own daughter loved wearing Disney princesses for Halloween. We did not promote or push this, but she wanted to be Elsa, Snow White, Mary Poppins. She liked wearing the long dresses, the wigs with the long hair, even the tiaras. For years, my nephews picked out their Halloween costumes solely based on the weapon it came with. I don't know if any of you can relate. My sister did not allow toy weapons in the house, but Halloween was the one exception. It was their one time they could get a sword, a trident, a baton, or a dagger. Consequently, they tended to be pirates, policemen, ninjas, or King Triton. But gender expectations can also be limiting, and not just on Halloween. You likely feel pressure to act masculinely or like a real man, even when Halloween is over, to be tough, strong, powerful. Notice I said act masculinely. We can think of gender as something we outwardly do, rather than something we inwardly are. Consider for a moment, gender is a little like a Halloween costume we wear all year long. On one hand, you can think of gender like a costume literally, how we dress, how we physically portray ourselves to each other. Last year, I dressed up as a Wabash man for Halloween. My students said, "How is that a costume?" I will tell you, I wore gray sweatpants. I'm looking if anybody has my costume on. A long sleeve Wabash shirt, a Wabash cap, of course I have short hair, my husband's socks, and a pair of Crocs, and I walked around with a gallon water. Thank you. Nailed it, right? My own advisee, Zane Hendrickson, said I fit in so well, he was really spooked out, that I'd be hard to pick out from a group of students. Of course, we can also think of gender as a costume in a more metaphorical sense. Several speakers, scholars, and activists have referred to real masculinity as a kind of mask men are taught to wear. In his 2013 documentary, for example, Jackson Katz argues that, quote, boys and young men learn early that being a so-called real man means you have to take on the tough guys. Guys here is spelled G-U-I-S-E, like disguise. In other words, he says, you have to show the world only certain parts of yourself that the dominant culture has defined as manly. Similarly, in a 2016 TED Talk, former football player Wade Davis shared, growing up, I understood I must wear this mask of masculinity every hour, every minute, every second of every day. That included how he talked, how he interacted with others, how he posed in photographs, and what he wore. Finally, in his 2017 book, The Mask of Masculinity, Lewis Howes says, quote, "I don't think men are fundamentally flawed or broken, not at all. They're just trapped. I know that's the way I felt for 30 years of my life. Remember those boxes we stuffed our emotions into when we were younger? As we outgrew the boxes, they transformed into masks that hold us back and hurt our family, our friends, coworkers, and romantic partners." He goes on, "Almost every man has a story in which he learned through pain, humiliation, or even force that he does not measure up. When that happens to him, masks become more than a way to hide, they become armor." He concludes, "In this way, all men, each and every one of us, have worn or currently wear a variety of masks to endure the onslaught of expectations from the world and to live up to the definitions of what it means to be a man." Please hear me clearly. I agree with Howes. Men are not fundamentally flawed or broken. I wouldn't work at a college for men if I thought they were, and not for 25 years. The behaviors often associated with masculinity, that is, behaving in ways that are stoic, assertive, powerful, are valuable for everyone. It's just tiresome and counterproductive to only show those parts of you, to wear that costume all the time, to hide or suppress the other parts of yourself, the more silly and quirky parts, the affectionate, loving, caretaking parts, even the emotionally vulnerable parts, for fear they'll be labeled as feminine, gay, or just weird. Fortunately, college is a time for trying new things, including even new gender expressions. Try on a new costume. I always loved learning in school, but I discovered early on it was not cool to be a nerd. This is the 80s, the 70s and 80s, it was not cool, especially as a girl. So I downplayed that part of myself, and I tried out for cheerleading. I was an alternate, proud of that. I also leaned into sports. I may not strike you as sporty. Someone who uses the word sporty is probably not athletic, but I used to be. I was a swimmer, a soccer player, and in high school I added field hockey and even badminton, varsity, #1. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, to badminton. But in college, I wanted to try something new. I grew my hair out super long, which was not a good look for me in retrospect. I also allowed the parts of me that loved to learn to show up out loud, which was still risky at the college I went to. I no longer suppressed that part. I let myself get excited about the readings, the assignments, and class discussions. Maybe you're already doing that, even unconsciously. Maybe you're enjoying a fresh start compared to high school and showing new parts of yourself here in college, or even pivoting after a rough year here. Halloween can remind us to outwardly show all the parts of us and not just wear the same mask or costume all the time, and to let other people around us in our clubs, classes, fraternities, and residences, teams, openly show us who they are. Of course, it can be scary to try out new expressions of gender. We often base decisions assuming how others will react. That's even true on Halloween. I used to choose my costumes in part based on what I thought my friends would react, or my family, or frankly, the people at the door when I trick-or-treated. And it's not only changing your gender expression that can be scary. Just thinking and learning about gender can make folks uncomfortable. I'm told some students fear enrolling in gender studies classes because they worry they're going to be teased by their friends, even their family, maybe called homophobic slurs. In other words, their mask of masculinity will slip and they'll be called out. That fear is being bolstered right now by some powerful and loud voices in our broader culture who warn us that gender studies is dangerous. They tell us not to question traditional assumptions about gender or sexuality. Keep thinking in simple terms, in binaries, men, women, masculinity, femininity, heterosexuality, homosexuality, good, bad, right, wrong. They've turned gender studies into a scary monster to justify abolishing it from college campuses and have been successful at doing so, including some colleges here in Indiana. Make no mistake, these figures stoke your fears for their political agenda. They prey on your anxiety and your discomfort in exploring gender to advance their own careers. There's nothing wrong with feeling uncomfortable about studying gender. It is a little scary at first to think in more complex ways about things compared to the way you were raised to think about them. To imagine gender and sexuality as spectra rather than binaries. To think in shades of gray instead of black and white. To interrogate masculinity and femininity as performances. The fear can also be exciting. After all, why do we watch scary movies at Halloween? What fun would Halloween or college be if it weren't a little scary? Halloween is intended to scare us. You go out at night in the dark when you were a kid to strangers' houses who have zombies and coffins and skeletons in their yards. You pass by people in other scary costumes who you don't know. With that fear comes freedom. You get to walk around your neighborhood, dress up, get candy for one night in the year. In gender studies classes, with the fear comes the freedom to explore a wider range of options to express gender and sexuality, to consider how multiple factors influence gender expression, and to reflect on and name your own experiences as men. This spring, for example, you can choose from 9 gender studies courses, including Theorizing the Father's Role with Professor Olafson, Iberian Nights with Professor Cozy, and Music and Masculinity with Professor Abels, and 5 more. Wabash is a college for men. Why attend a college whose student body is defined by gender and not study gender? So I'm going to end by encouraging you to try out a gender studies class and even pick up the minor. Scare yourself a little and your friends like you did as a kid in Halloween. Take a chance. Wear your courageous costume. Express different parts of yourself. Try studying something that scares you a little. Don't mindlessly follow what other people tell you, or even I tell you, gender studies is. Find out for yourself. Choose to take a gender studies class not because it's safe or comfortable, but because it's risky and scary for you. And support your Wabash brothers who respond to that dare. Affirm their courage. You and they can draw from the strength of over 300 Wabash men who have now taken Gender 101, Introduction to Gender Studies course. Most praise the course and recommend it to others. As someone who's taught the class, I can tell you, they do not all sign up with confidence and great amounts of comfort, but they tend to end it that way. Most are really enthusiastic. My gender courses, whether it's Gender 101 or electives I've offered, are often the ones alumni refer to the most when I encounter them, saying it changed the way they saw themselves and thought about the world around them. I even have alumni send me through email or snail mail something they saw or came across that reminded them of the gender class. Halloween's gonna come, it's gonna go, and we'll all take off the costumes you've purchased or you made for that one day, and we'll return to wearing the masks of masculinity or femininity that our culture expects, the other costume we wear the rest of the year. The fear and the freedom of Halloween will die down to routine expectations. But in a gender studies class, you learn the vocabulary and ideas that enable you all year long to explore what's under the mask you wear, or what other costumes are available, and reclaim the parts of yourself, the roles, the characters, the qualities that you've hidden or tucked away. With the courage to face your discomfort and fear comes the freedom, as Howe says, to be who you actually are. So let's create together a college for men who can bravely show their whole selves and who can bravely show their whole selves and champion each other's courageous costumes. Thank you.
Just a few final announcements here. Tomorrow night, swimming and diving takes on Rose Holman. Then on Saturday, our soccer team faces John Carroll. I want to thank you all for attending. Now, will you please rise and join me in singing Old Wabash? From the